So the trade deadline has now officially passed, and the Packers decided not to trade for any new player. They did, however, trade away Preston Smith to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 7th-round pick, which I already covered in a video in the past couple hours. Honestly, for me, I'm not that upset with the Packers not making a move. I think that over the years, the more you watch the Packers and their decision-making and what they do around trade deadline time, you start to get used to it. You just start to expect that nothing's probably going to happen. And I remember for years, there's always different players that the Packers have supposedly, reportedly been in on. Guys like Odell Beckham Jr. a few years ago, a few other players at times. And I think the Packers, they just have found a formula for success, and that's not trading for high-priced players in the middle of a season. And I respect it. They have a way they want to operate. They want to mainly build through the draft. They do make some moves in the offseason, like bringing in Xavier McKinney. The Packers did trade for Malik Willis for a 7th-rounder before the season started, so of course that didn't happen at the trade deadline, but that was still a pretty big move for the Packers. And so I honestly don't have that big of a problem with it. I think as a fan, it's always fun to see your team get some, solid player at a position where you could use a little bit more depth or even potentially upgrading one of your starting positions for the Packers, I think the defensive side of the ball. But I'm not thinking like, oh no, it's the end of the world. Could a player have helped? I think any time, any season, there are tons of players where if you bring them in, they're going to be an upgrade to what you currently have. And I think the Packers just have the mindset of they're going to want to stack up as much draft capital as possible and every single year, really try to build through the draft. And I think that when you look at teams who trade away 4th-round picks for certain guys, yes, it works sometimes, but when you trade away these 4th-round picks, 5th-round picks, 3rd-round picks, you do miss out on potentially striking gold in some of those rounds. The Packers have struck gold in the 4th round all the time. You got Zach Tom, one of the best right tackles in the NFL, a 4th-rounder. You have Evan Williams, who right now, in a small sample size, looks like one of the best safeties in the league. And so when you get guys in the 4th round, and then you get to play them as starters for 3-4 years, paying them basically pennies on the dollar based on what other teams are having to pay their top guys, that's sort of what I think allows you to build championship rosters. And I'm not opposed to making trades. Like, I'm all for making trades, but I think the Packers just have a way they want to do it. They've shown us time and time and time again. And I honestly don't think that the Packers are, they necessarily need to make a move to be a team that can be competitive in the Super Bowl. I really think they have the talent on the roster to do it. If there would have been a position, I think edge rusher would have been a good position to add. They're currently 20th in pressure rate in the NFL, so the pressure hasn't really been there for the defense. It's been there from time to time, but Rashawn Gary, he's had a few better games recently, but all in all, the pass rush has been somewhat disappointing. So if there was a move, I would have liked to see a move there. Also, I think with the injuries to Jair Alexander, Evan Williams, there is a little bit of lack of depth when it comes to the corner and safety room. I think that also could have made sense. And I would assume the Packers were in some kind of conversations. They always seem to be in every kind of conversation. Brian Gutekunst has made that clear over the years that he does like to, see what's going on around the NFL. And I think the Packers just aren't willing to, trade important draft picks that they think can be valuable in future years for guys that are going to cost more money in the, short term. And there are some teams who take a different approach to it. I think lots of teams these days are willing to trade away some draft capital for players who are going to help them now. But I think for the Packers, when you have to pay a quarterback $55 million per year, just like with other teams who are paying their quarterbacks top dollar, you have to start to find more values in the draft and hit on those draft pieces if you want to compete with teams who have guys like Jaden Daniels on a rookie contract. And when you have a quarterback on a rookie contract and he's playing at a top tier level, that really is the biggest cheat code in the NFL. And so I saw the Commanders traded for Marshawn Lattimore today. I know lots of Packers fans were talking about wanting him to come into Green Bay. I think they traded away a 3rd, 4th, and 6th, and they got back a 5th. And so that's a lot of draft capital for a cornerback to bring in. No doubt that he's going to be a big add for their team. And I think that when you're in their position where you have a quarterback on a rookie contract, you can afford to make some of those riskier, bolder moves, trading away a ton of draft capital. But teams who are paying one guy $55 million a year, it's that much harder to consistently have talent across your entire roster when you're trading for high-priced players who may be, a little bit older in age. So At the end of the day, I don't think it's that big a deal they didn't make a trade. Would I have liked to see it? Yes. Could they have gotten better? Yes. But the Packers don't just play the short-term game year in and year out. They're always thinking long-term. They're thinking, 2025, 2026. And so it's just sort of the philosophy of the Packers and how they like to operate. But that's pretty much it for this video. If you want more Packers content, feel free to subscribe down below. You can also follow me on Twitter at LukeBeller3, where I share some other Packers thoughts throughout the day from time to time. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.